in the hours of night at vigils, I was reliving this feast in past years in our monastic life, and I recall how for some reason this was a very mystic feast, partly because of the density of prayer and tranquility that's in the air in the hours of night. The monastic chant, the ethos of vigils, long meditation, and then Lauds, all that in the heart of night, and as the sun rises eventually, in some way favours hugely a sharing in what actually happened on this day. When one looks into the night, one looks into time which has passed. If one, on a clear night, as it would be now, on the continent especially, looks into the air at the stars, for instance after the long midnight office, one is looking at light years. Therefore, the stars that one sees have years ago, light years ago, sent their beam. And they might not even be there right now, given the time it's taken for their light to come. We just cannot comprehend this magnitude, this distance. So when the Lord on this day left geography as we know it, he was heading there with his humanity, which is ours, into this other dimension where time and space are understood in a different mode. I remember reading that in the Purgatory manuscript. This nun who was alive wanted to know what time was like on the other side, and the answer was quite simple. It's just another dimension which one cannot understand until one has got here. Something of it has come through in those who have left some kind of testimony of being dead for a while. They suddenly begin to perceive things not through their senses, but with their soul, and directly. They start to know things, and they start to see things in a very different mode. And this travel is one of the modes, for better or for worse. Now I'd like, just for a second, to pause as though we were at that point. It will happen, and at that point, all time will be seen for what it is. While we're on earth, we are in danger of never really stopping the passage of time and feeling it. We are all the time pushing it away. If we're honest, we're uncomfortable in this eye to eye with time, standing still. We can't do it. We immediately cancel it, push it away. It's easy, especially with mobile phones, but even in adoration, we are not always willing just to gaze, to feel, to know, and to be ministered to. But the hours of night are the very ones that somehow favour this to the maximum. And I remember years ago in France, thinking to myself, on this day, did the Lord, at this moment of leaving his participation in our mode for all time, feel some twinge, especially after the pain of Calvary, when he had this 40-day period of almost sorrow. This earth, which after all issued from his hands, was good. He knew the good things. He knew the blessing of family and friends. He knew the blessing of calm nature. The Holy Land is actually quite beautiful, especially in parts. He knew the joy of little things, sharing a meal, sleeping at night. He knew the joy of music and of singing together. Was there some twinge in his human heart as he left this forever in his humanity? We cannot know. But one thing is certain: when one is next to a person who is lucid and knows that he is in his dying moments, these things are there. Dear faces that they will not see again. I remember talking not long ago to my brother, how he had gone to see our dear Auntie Gwenda. They had had a good talk. She was deeply Christian, and she knew what was awaiting her. And they just talked, and my brother said goodbye and turned away. He knew that he would not see her again, but she was quite calm, and she went to her hope. I remember talking to my Uncle Gwyn, who lived opposite us. He was a reverend and a great preacher, and before he died, and he knew he was dying, we had a heart-to-heart talk. And he looked back on his life and just said calmly in Welsh, "There are many things that I'm happy about that I've done." And he was quite well known because every night he had a program on the television. In those days, Welsh television was very Christian, still is actually. And he then said, there are one or two things perhaps which, if I had time over again, I wouldn't do again. But this was the state of his soul. He had given all his life to Jesus, and he was at peace. A priest knows the difference. It comes out very quickly when one is ministering to the dying. How quickly life has passed when one wasn't taking care of one's soul, when one had time. Indeed, one sees very, very quickly whether a person is ready or not, if they're still lucid. It can be picked up in a few phrases, and it's quite frightening, because even at that point, quite often, one can't get through. All one can do is trust in the mercy of God and ask that He'll make up. But if one looks across the planet, as the Lord does, from where He is seated at the right hand of the Father, He is seeing all over this globe a cloud of souls coming out continuously from the earth. And He knows exactly what proportion used time well. And what does He do with those who only encounter time for the first time, 1 second after it's run out?
Domine, labia mea aperies. Lord, open our lips, and we shall praise your name. The opening of night office, the midnight prayer of the monks. When in the night we sing and sing again of what is here not seen, of what is not beheld or held in passing, when the pain of moments in obscurity forgot is heard upon the dark. And when the mark of Satan's passage o'er the soul of man, that dandled o'er an aeon in this dark, is felt, where angels knelt as spectres wan toward Hades' yawning jaw, for A and A at midnight's gong moved on with scarce a sigh. When night is heavy and the sound of day for some is never more to hush this cry, when I say a pause upon the world sends frissons through this earth, where mirth seemed long and night was spent in fondling, then is hurled this gently turning ball 'neath our calm song to vast cacophony, to damned chords, where one stilled pendulum all beating